Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Son coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Today, we have some bird stories. That'll be our theme for today. Don Vesser, someone who had shared a Bigfoot story, he came up with this footage where he basically found this red-tailed hawk that had got caught in an ice storm and got so weighted down with ice. He basically collected the bird up and put it in a cage in his garage, let it thaw out, and then released it later. And I have a story of a golden eagle, a couple golden eagles that were in basically dog fights with these blackbirds. That's really interesting. Fighter pilot wrote about this, so he kind of gives it in a perspective like a fighter pilot, watching these things do battle and how awesome they were when they were doing this. So that's going to be a good one. And I had a bird, a robin that was nesting in the yard. Every year I have these robins that nest in the yard somewhere on the property. And it snowed. I mean, it snowed really good, like a couple, 2, 3 feet, drifting and what have you. And snow was around for several days. And I guess this bird got hungry and related the back door where I would always be throwing out breadcrumbs or biscuits when they were old. I'd crumble them up and scatter them outside, or potato chips, so fairly regular. I was throwing food out, and these, the birds would eat it. And I guess this bird, related the back door to food, and so it came to the door and was going off, hitting at the door and squawking, and it took me a little while to figure out what the heck the deal was. So anyway, I got some footage of that. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I might have another something I'll add, possibly, but I don't know. We'll just see. If anyone has a story they would like to share, and if you have sent me a message before and I haven't gotten back to you, I have moved the studio to a different location. I'm trying to get organized again. If you have a good story and you had already emailed me, please email me again back on that same thread if you can find it, and I'll try to get these stories rolling again like I had been. If anybody wants to contribute, you can go to a link in the description, and super easy to use. I want to get this place soundproofed because it's near a road and you can hear traffic sometimes, but I'll make do and get it taken care of as soon as I can. Thank you all, and enjoy these stories. Now, Don Vesser, he's been on the show before, and he shared a Bigfoot story, and ironically later he ended up winning one of the flashlights on the through night flashlight giveaways that I did. He took a long time to come forward and share a story because he was in and out of the hospital, kind of at death's door. So really appreciate Don. He had something really interesting happen here recently, a few days ago. We've been having these ice storms all over, and he just so happened to run across a red-tailed hawk covered with ice in the freezing rain on 1/12/16. And so he basically takes it and thawed it out in a cage in his garage overnight and released it on 1/13/16 the next day. It was so iced up he couldn't get off the ground or even straighten his wings out, and I thought that a predator or a car would get him during the night. I think this is a juvenile male from this past summer. Had one. He said that he had a hawk for 2 years when he was a kid and got books at the library about falconry. And he said, my dad helped me train him, and 2 years later we released him at our hunting camp in Iron County, Upper Peninsula of Maine. Yeah, that's pretty cool. When I was 9 years old, I went to visit my mom in Kentucky. I lived in Indiana at the time, and she had a sparrowhawk, and this thing was even living outside. I guess they trained it, previously, but you could go outside with this big leather glove on and a piece of meat, and call for it. I think it was like some type of whistle or something, and this thing would come land on that glove, and you could feed it meat, and it was pretty cool for a 9-year-old kid, to have a sparrow hawk land on his arm and eat. It was pretty neat. So, and it ended up being that later, um, down the road, they found the bird. Someone had shot it, and it was laying on the side of the road or something like that. But someone had shot it with like a 22, some kid or something probably, and so it was kind of sad ending. But it was a really beautiful bird, and I really had a good time playing with it. So thank you, Don. What an interesting story, and you might have saved that bird's life, that's for sure. Because that, being grounded like that is not a good thing for a bird. Thank you.
That's gonna be an action shot here. I've got video on. Oh, okay. Well, that'd be even cooler to send that. Whoa! Whoa! He's got his wings back.
Now, this little robin right here, and this basically family of robins nested in my yard every year. And they had babies, raised them, and what have you, and they seen food being thrown out the door every day. And look, this thing is actually right. I'm filming out of my back door through the glass right now with my phone. And this thing was basically, now look, he lands right on the stoop, right there, and he had been pecking on the door, and he's just making all kinds of racket, chirp, 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 freaking out outside the the back door. And at first, I didn't really know what the heck it was doing. I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, why is this thing going off at the back door? It even goes and lands here in a minute. I go outside, and this is a different clip coming up now, I think. Well, here in a minute it will. But I open the back door, and I throw a piece of bread out, and I think he goes to it right now. I'm panned over. Now he lands on that piece of bread I just threw out the door. I nudged over. That's why, yeah, I already threw the bread out. That little hole you see in the where he landed, that's a piece of bread I threw out there, and he landed on that and was eating on it some. And you can see all the snow. There was just no food around. So he is basically needing something to eat. And now that I think about it, he's on the bread right now, eating. Now that I think about it, he might even have been thirsty. I guess when it's frozen, there's no water around either. And I guess the robins really don't, fly south like the rest of the birds. Okay, now here he's going to just swarm me, like he's still wanting something. And you can see I threw the bread out already. This is a different shot. I'd stop recording. He lands on this thing right beside me, and I tried to catch him there. And then back to the chair. And the phone makes it look like it's further than it really is. But when he just landed right beside me on the little planter to my right, because I stepped out the door, right then. I'm outside right now. He was only like 2.5 feet from me. I mean, I could have reached out and grabbed him, And, well, anyway, one of the weird things was that, that's the planter, the edge of the planter right there. You can see where he's been landing on that and messing with the window. scratches in the snow and what have you. But one of the weird things that was about this case was that Dana had had a dream that a bird came to the back door to tell me something. And she told me about it, and then lo and behold, the next day, this bird was at the back door freaking out, trying to get my attention to come outside. And I'm standing out here outside, and that bird is flying all around me. He's landing on the chair, on the planter, and then he goes to the fence some. He's not running from me, that's for sure. Um, there was one time when I was out in the front yard, and there was a bird sitting on the back of one of those chairs, those iron chairs you see right there. And I walked real slow over to the chair, and I picked that robin up. It was a full-grown bird too, just like that one. I picked it up and I was petting it. And Dana was watching out the window. She was like, "How in the heck did you go pick that bird up?" But I walked right over to it, kind of like I'm walking over here. Now I'm only like 3 feet from that bird. He's not going to let me pick him up. But I walked over to it and picked it up. And she was like, "How did you pick that bird up like that?" And I petted the bird for a little bit. You can see he's eating the bread again. And then I just opened my hands up and let him go, and he flew right off. But very interesting. I thought it was interesting that she would have a dream, and then it's so cold my camera don't want to focus right there. She would have a dream, and a bird comes to tell me something, and then this bird is begging at the back door for food. It associates the back door with food, I reckon. Hope y'all enjoy that. I thought this was a very interesting story. Robert Yount sent me. He had sent me a picture of the Bigfoot in the tree, or the boy and the Bigfoot in the tree, something like that, here a while back. And he was working on building a camera and stuff for me. But he sent this story I thought was really interesting, called "Eagles Take Care of Business." And it says this came from a gentleman who runs a 2,000-acre corn farm up around Barron. Is that Wisconsin? Yeah. Okay, not far from Oshkosh. He used to fly F-4Es and F-16s for the Guard and participate in the first Gulf War. And this is his story. He said, "I went out to plant corn for a bit to finish a field before tomorrow morning and witnessed the great battle. A golden eagle, big with about a 6-foot wingspan, flew right in front of the tractor. It was being chased by 3 crows that were continually dive bombing it and pecking at it. The crows do this because the eagles rob their nest when they find them." And I've seen this kind of thing around whenever I see a hawk or something. I'll see these crows always chasing it, pecking at it, things like that. So like, man, that must be a little bit nerve-wracking. But you can see the pictures here of the bird, flying over this thing here, and even right here you can see it pecking at it. Very, very interesting. But these birds are just huge, and they're beautiful, that's for sure. At any rate, the eagle banked hard right in one evasive maneuver, then landed in the field about 100 feet from the tractor. This eagle stood about 3 feet tall. The crows all landed too and took up positions around the eagle at 120 degrees apart, but kept their distance at about 20 feet from the big bird. The eagle would take a couple steps toward one of the crows, and they'd hop backwards and forward to keep their distance. Then the reinforcement showed up. I happened to spot the eagle's mate hurtling down out of the sky at what appeared to be approximately Mach 1.5. Just before impact, the eagle on the ground took flight. Obviously a coordinated tactic, probably pre-briefed. And the 3 crows that were watching the grounded eagle also took flight, thinking they were going to get in some more pecking on the big bird. So here's a little bit of some diving and stuff from one of these big birds. And this is a guy, from a fighter pilot standpoint. I thought it was pretty neat how he's looking at this. And anyway, the first crow being targeted by the diving eagle never stood a snowball's chance in hell. There was a mid-air explosion of black feathers, and the crow was done. So that's one of the crows taken out. The diving eagle then banked hard left in what had to be a 9G climbing turn using the energy it had accumulated in the dive, and hit crow number 2. Less than 2 seconds later, another crow died. So they took out 2 already. Okay, the grounded eagle, which was now airborne and had an altitude advantage on the remaining crow that was streaking eastward in full burner, made a short dive, then banked hard right. When the escaping crow tried to evade the hit, it didn't work. The crow number 3 bit the dust at about 20 feet AGL. This aerial battle was better than any air show I've been to, including the Warbird show at Oshkosh. The 2 eagles ripped the crows apart and ate them on the ground. As I got closer and closer, working my way across the field, I passed within 20 feet of one of them as it ate its catch. It stopped and looked at me as I went by, and you could see in the look of the bird that it knew who's boss of the sky. What a beautiful bird. He said, I loved it. Not only did they kill their enemy, they ate them. One of the best fighter pilot stories I've seen in a long time. Yeah. So, these crows are following this big bird, and the bird lands. But in the meantime, the other birds swooping down, and they worked together and basically took out these crows because they were better tactically. and then they ate them. Amazing. Pretty cool story, from Robert Yount.
That's gonna be an action shot here. I've got video on. Oh, okay. Well, that'd be even cooler to send that.
Whoa! Whoa! Die, bird.
He's got his wings back.